Joining me today is Nancy West, who is the founder of the New Hampshire Center for Public Interest Journalism. Nancy, we're talking about Northern Past and sort of the process that you go through. And I hate to ask a journalist to sort of forecast what will happen, because whatever you do, something else will probably happen. But I'm going to do it anyway because it's so much fun.
Okay.
What do you think are some of the story areas, not the specifics, but sort of the general areas that you think will, as you look forward to this legislative session, and as you think of what may be happening in the state, and this may be things that your spider senses are saying it's going to be, could be interesting. What do you think this year we might look forward to?
Well, I think anything the legislature does as far as the opioid issue is worth watching. I think that child abuse is going to be front and center because of the report that came out of Division for Children, Youth, and Families. I know the lawmakers have been tasked with changing some of the laws if they can figure out a better way to do that. I've been following child abuse issues for 30 years, and I will be doing some serious investigation into what they decide or want to try as far as legislation goes. I've seen the pendulum swing. 10 years ago, people thought that the trend was to keep families reunited. That was the big buzzword.
Right.
Now they're finding children aren't safe in some of the homes where they've really focused on reunification.
Well, and I suspect there's a connection between that and the opioid crisis.
It's huge. There is no way that child abuse is going down when you have people who are so many addicted to opioids, which New Hampshire is right out front and center. I don't still understand why, but it's a highly addictive population right now. And they're not, drug addicts don't take good care of their kids.
Do you think anything will happen around charter schools, public school funding in this session? I know we're starting to see some stuff with all-day kindergarten funding, but you think we're going to see something around that?
Oh, I think there'll be some movement on that, some different legislation. I don't know how it will go, but I think there's always a desire to look at those issues, especially the funding. People need more, every community will say they are not getting enough, and that will be...
Yeah, and I've interviewed the superintendent of Kearsarge, and a lot of that debate was on how do we pay for what we do, and how do you balance the taxpayers and the various interests. I don't doubt that will stay there. The budget cycle, do you think it'll be kumbaya now that there's three branches in the same party, or will the Republican Party, will we see some fractions within that party?
I think there'll be fractions. I think we've seen it before in the Republican Party, and we'll see it again. And I think many of a lot of these lawmakers come to Concord with strong ideas and the real belief that they can make a difference. They're going to be pushing and a lot of push and pull. We have a wonderful citizens legislature, so I'm sure there'll be. I believe Representative Neil Kirk is very active with the budget, and I've seen some of his work, sat through some of those hearings. They're very interesting.
Well, I certainly know he knows, and he's thoughtful, but he really rolls his sleeves up and understands the budget.
Oh, he really does. He's a real asset.
Some people will agree with him, some people will disagree with him, but I think he does try to do what he believes is right for the state, for example.
And it does seem that there's another one that I think is going to be very important everywhere, and I hope people will take it very seriously, is criminal justice. There seems to be kind of a disconnect. There's, at one point, you have the ability for drug addicts to go get help at their local fire station, but if they give drugs to their buddy and their buddy dies, there seems to be the renewed effort to charge them with manslaughter. That's one bill that's in there.
Yep.
And I think what the trend has been in most states is to try to reduce the number of people in the prison population. Your average stay in prison is going to be about 4 years. They're going to come out, prisoners are going to come out, and what kind of programs are you going to make available so that they can get over that, the immediate problem of having to sign a job application as a convicted felon. But I'm old school, I've been around a long time. I see a link between child abuse and prison. Every inmate, and I've interviewed many inmates up at the state prison, many were abused as children. And people will say, oh, it's just
So it's like most things, early intervention, right, will make a difference.
I would think. And, you know, I've never seen it done. But although I have seen it done in Scandinavian countries, in Hawaii, they have a wonderful early intervention program into young families, social workers working with young families to get off drugs, to take good care of the kids. And would that end up with a reduced prison population? I think that's what some researchers think. I don't know, but
Well, and what we'll do is this involves, because it will be, I think you're right, a story. We'll have you back on. But thanks so much for being here.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us for this edition of Capital Connections, your weekly access to politics and policy along the I-89 and I-91 corridors and how it impacts your life in our region. If you've got a comment or an idea for a future show, please send me an email. But join us at this same time next week for another edition of Capital Connections.